Oh, hi guys, and here we are at the start of the next build, which is the Mystic by popular demand. So I've just done one video so far of the restart of the build, because if you recall, I did start this last year, stopped for one reason or another, so this is picking up where I left off. Several things to sort out, several things to mull over as well, as you'll see in the video, such as the undercarriage. Do I want to use the wire undercarriage, which I originally was starting with? That comes in the kit, but as you'll see, I've actually changed my mind on that. Mounting the engine, because that was the reason I suppose I stopped it last year, was because there were lots of things to sort out. So I went away to sort those out and never came back to get on with the build. So that's where I left it, that's where I'm jumping in. Anyway, hope you enjoy the vids, and we'll have a catch up afterwards. Cheers. Okay, so we're back on the Mystic build. Now, I've already built these before when I started this build. So I've got my tailplane, I've got my fin, and I've got my rudder. Now, because I'm fitting a fairly large motor, Laser 150V twin, the recommendation is that these get covered in balsa, sheet balsa. So that's the first thing I've got to do, is cover these. But of course they're wider than a sheet of balsa, so I've got to join balsa sheets together. So that's the first job I've got. So let's just move these out of the way. Well, actually, let's move the fin and rudder out of the way, and let's get the balsa sheets in place. Okay, so the first thing I've got to do is mark up and cut these balsa sheets to size for, first of all, the the tailplane, and then I'll do the fin and rudder. Marking it up. Lining up there, lining up here. Mark it with a felt tip. Obviously I'm going to need two of those. Making sure I've got a new scalpel blade in place, and let's do the other at the top side as well. There we go. There. That's that piece. So let's just check. They're going to go there and there, and of course these pieces aren't going to be long enough to cover there, which is a great. I could join them in the middle, but I'm not going to. I'm going to get some more balsa from my store, because I've got plenty. Obviously this that I've just cut off can be used for the fin and rudder as well. One thing I would say is, on the rudder, I'm not going to cover that with balsa. Yes, I'm going to cover the fin part with balsa, but not the rudder. Why? Because it's adding extra weight and it's not necessary on the rudder. I'm just going to cover that with my covering, whatever it may be. I haven't decided yet how to cover this, laminating film, solar film, or whatever, or solar text, maybe for that. The elevator is a solid one-piece elevator anyway, so we can't do much about that in terms of weight, but there's no point in covering the unnecessarily so things I don't need to. So the rudder I'm going to leave as it is, but I will cover the fin. So I'll leave that there. I'll just go and get another sheet of balsa. Okay, so let's just put that sheet to one side. Just see where the overlap occurs. It's going to be there. Just mark up on the pen there. So all I'm doing is I'm just seeing where the balsa framework of the tailplane goes, so that I know that's where I've got to cut the line of this sheet. And yeah, I could arguably cut a diagonal, but what the heck, I'm not going to bother with that too much. Oops. It would help if I didn't drop my scalpel, which is great because I've now bent that, so I'm going to change the blade. Be back in a minute. Changing the blade has just reminded me a couple of things really. If you haven't got one of these, get one of these. For your old blades that are blunt, put them in this. They're then handy to dispose of. These cost about 90 pence, pound or whatever. Well worth having because they last, even though that's full up, that's lasted a long time. And with regards to the blades, I buy non-sterile blades, big packs of them like this, because I do get through blades at quite a rate, especially when you're cutting covering film. That really does blunt a blade, or two or three, depending on the size of plane, obviously. Let's get that square. But it's nice having a sharp blade, look at that. And that is just going to be too short again. Oh, that is so frustrating. Because that it just falls short. There. Actually, I tell a lie. No, it doesn't. By the time I've done the rounded, the leading edge of that, that's going to be absolutely fine. Right. So I've cut my sheets, and the reason I've cut those rather than sticking them directly on is I need to join them. So in effect, I'll end up with one big sheet, wide sheet of balsa that I can apply to the tailplane. So the way I join them, first thing I do is I will measure where the join's got to go. We know that it's there, I marked it there, and I mark it here on that one. And let's just do the same on this. Again, marking here and here. Okay. Move that out of the way. And what I need to do is join the two pieces of balsa together, the sheets of balsa together like that. There and there. And glue them. What I'll do is I'll just pin those loosely to the board And the reason I'm doing this is just to hold them in position. There. Just hold them in position so I don't move them when I put the masking tape down. That's the only reason for that. So mask along that joint. Pin's a bit mucky. Could be do it cleaning up. I'll put it to one side. Okay, with masking tape on, just take that off and do the same with the other one. And that's why I put masking tape on, because now I can fold that joint back, put glue down that joint, and then fold them back again. And what I'm going to use is superphatic glue. So I'm going to hold the joint not fully open, but just to partially open, and just run superphatic down that joint. Now why superphatic? It's quick drying, it's easily sandable, and it's very thin, so when you are putting these together, capillary action will take the glue through. So there's the glue in place. If I see a bit that I've missed, or it's not got enough in there, just reopen it and apply a bit more, and that's the beauty of superphatic. So just now push that up to there, pins in place. This time I'm going to put in more pins. And do exactly the same now with the other one. Good. So that's done the two sheets for the tailplane. Now I'll be able to stick those then onto that in a little while, because that doesn't take long to go off. I'm going to do exactly the same now for the fin. Notice I haven't cut the fin to shape or anything, or rounded it. I'm not going to bother with that. What I will do is make sure that I have made sure on this already, but this needs some sanding down, because the bits of balsa, the stick balsa that were used to form it, weren't exactly the same thickness for whatever reason. So it does need some sanding down. So I'll sand that down first of all. Like I say, I've already done that one. But there's nothing to stop me marking up my bits of balsa here that I need for the fin, mark them up, cut them out, stick them together as I've just done. So come back later. Okay, moving on a few hours, well in fact it's the next day. This should all be stuck now, so let's have a look, see what I've got. As I say, originally using superphatic, this would have stuck very easily, very quickly. As you can see there, well, you can't really see it. There's the join going down there. That's pretty good. when I make a decision, finally decide anyway on which covering method I'm going to use. I know what it won't be. It won't be brown paper, it won't be glassed, so it'll either be laminating film or solar film or a cover of the like, something like that. So let's lay this sheet down, the best side out. And one thing I'm not going to do immediately is stick both skins on. And the reason for that is I want to just double check my dimensions, because I'm going to probably put Robart hinges for the control surfaces in both the rudder fin and elevator tailplane. And because they will come through the false trailing edge, even though that's a hardwood, as you can see there, that's a hardwood false trailing edge, for support for the pins I may want to put blocks of balsa on the inside here. So I'll have a look at that in a moment. So first things first, let's stick the balsa down onto the tail, and I'm going to use PVA, my Gorilla Glue white for that. Glue wise in particular, that's the glob I want to put on there. Okay, let's start to put some on to the surface. Okay, now that glue is on there, I'll just plonk this back down on the building board. Get the surface that I want to be on the outside. Line it up with the false trailing edge there, and then just rubbing that down. Contact, and of course I will be pinning this down. Right the way through to the building board below. About there. This is just so that when it dries Shouldn't be any warping anyway, really. That framework is quite sturdy, but so I've pinned it down around the edges, and then I'm just going to weight it down around here. So good old motorcycle battery or lawnmower battery, whatever it was from. There. I'll get some more weights for there. It's on the same theme, just using some old 6cell packs just to weight that down, just to hold it in place. Right, so the moment of truth. Let's take these weights off. Just put them over to one side. And of course, as I've only stuck one side, if it hasn't stuck to all the places I want it to stick to, then I can always attack them from the inside. Only applies to this skin, of course, because the other skin will totally encapsulate it. So yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. No loose sheeting. Excellent. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to trim the balsa purely and simply so that it's made, when I put the top piece on, it's going to be easier to maneuver and see what I'm doing. There we go, that's nice. I've mentioned earlier that I'm going to use robot hinges, so I'm just going to check those to see how much meat of this false trailing edge is going to be in place, or how much they protrude through that, to see whether I need to put blocking balsa on the inside. Okay, so the robots I'm thinking of using are these ones. The next size up are these, which I think are a bit over the top. Yeah, they're going to be over the top, those are. I don't need them to be that big. These are going to be perfectly adequate, I would say. I'll be 3 per side. 3 per half of the elevator, let's say, so 6 in total, which should be more than adequate. But if I position the, let's just zoom in a bit. If I position the robot there, then there's a fair chunk of the robot that sticks through, and for peace of mind, I think I would like to have that embedded in balsa. So I'm going to put some blocks in here. That one there should be okay because it's already got some balsa there, so I'm just going to block it in these places to provide some additional support. The blocks are now in place. Let's just tilt that up so you can see them here. here and at the end there, and I've just glued the surface up, ready for the application of the other skin of balsa, which goes on as I did the previous one. Smooth that into place, making sure that the false trailing edge lines up. Obviously the leading edge is going to be sanded, so that's not too much of a concern. And pin and weight down. Jumping about a bit because I'm waiting for the tail feathers to dry. So I thought what I'd do is I'd have a look at the fitting of the motor, which I've forgotten what I did last year, I'll be honest, so got to look at it again. So here is the good old Laser 150 twin. That's got a bolt to there, to the bulkhead. And what I need to determine is how I'm going to do that. I've got the cowl here, which doesn't overlap the fuselage, so it's going to butt joint against the fuselage there. So if I measure the front to back of the cowl, just rudimentary lining up, that's about 145, just under 145 mil from the front there to the back. So that's where my prop needs to come. In other words, that point of the motor. So measuring that front to back, I should be more scientific and get my calipers, but that is, well, it's about 112 millimeters, 112, call it 115. So that's 115 mil, 145. I need a standoff for this of 30 mil, there or thereabouts, so that it sits about there on the fuselage. Now I could make standoffs out of aluminium for each of these, and I know that's the way I used to do it with the petrol engines. I personally prefer a solid block approach to that, so I'm going to make that out of ply, and I've got some suitable ply, he says here, which I think is, what is it, 15 mil, no, it's just below, it's about 13 mil, so that gives me 26, so about 4 millimeters short, which should be just about right by the time I've put some washers on it, the mounting, or I can put washers on the mounting just to give me a little bit of wiggle room. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut 2 pieces with the laser cutter out of this to fit on the back of them, or to fit on the bulkheads that the motor will fit to them. I will bolt right the way through from the motor through this, and I'll put some T-nuts on the inside of the bulkhead for the motor to mount on. Right, let's go and draw those up on the CAD system so I can shove it through the laser cutter. Just cutting the standoff pieces now. So it's cutting with the saw. And using drill, of course, so yeah. See what they turn out like in a minute. Well, there are the 2 This is laser cut, just sanded, give them a light sanding, and they're going to go on to the back of the motor like that and be stuck to the bulkhead. So what I'll do is I'll laminate those together with some epoxy, clamp them up obviously and let them dry, and then I can mount those to the bulkhead on the Mystic. Well, that was the intro video to the start of the build of the Mystic. Hope you enjoyed it. Lots of things to do, lots of things I'm working on. Obviously concurrently, the tail feathers now got to be sanded down. I've got to do the elevator and I've got to shape that. A lot of sanding to do then, not so much a profile because it's just a rounded nose, but obviously the tail end of it has got to be sanded to profile of the elevators, and ditto with the fin and rudder. In the meantime, the mounting block for the engine has been laminated, and I'll be marking up the fuselage bulkhead for that next and putting T-nuts in so that I can mount the motor. So I'll be concentrating really on finishing off the tail and at the same time doing the motor, mounting the motor so I can get the fuel tank in place, because once that's in place I can then put the ply mount for the undercarriage in place, which I'm hoping will arrive in the next few days, which will be the front end then out of the way, which means I can then stick everything on the back end of the model. What I don't like doing is sticking the tail feathers on the model if I've still got to mount the motor, because you're waggling the fuselage around, it could cause all damage. And of course I've got to construct the wing as well. So we're well on the way. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Put likes down below and any comments also down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Anyway guys, see you on the next one. Cheers.